here is what I roughly think the direction of travel should be. And I think at the moment, the debate is a bit impoverished. You've got, on the one hand, the kind of wealth tax crowd. The answer to everything is this, just if we tax wealth, then everything would be fine. There'd be no such thing as destitution or poverty or inequality in this country. And I think it's just not serious, a lot of that thinking. And on the other hand, you've got the sort of, my team was showing me this meme of proper bin men. And like all of these old random traditional things that we're supposed, like trad wives, if only we had proper bin men and trad wives, we'd all be fine, and everybody would know their place and blah blah blah. So both of those to me are just not serious ways of thinking. A politics that tries to harken back just never works, and it's not often desirable to try. In fact, it can be quite destructive to try. And the idea that just slapping taxes on the wealthy who leave is the answer, I also think is not serious. In this problem, the problem with our economy is above all about productivity. That is the central economic problem that we face. And in particular, most people's wages have not been going up for a very long time. And that is at root because productivity has not been going up for a very long time. And investment, public and private, is the key to solving that problem in a much more long-term, big picture and ambitious way. That is part of what the government's already doing. And hopefully over the coming, months, days and decades, it will go further. But until we get productivity up, the average wage for working people isn't going to go up. And the connection between work, reward and being able to get on won't be what people want it to be. And we might well end up in a world, like the state, for example, where the state does less, better and more efficiently. And it does that by investing in capital and technology. But in order to get to that place, we need to be so much more radical in how we think about investing in a technology and then integrating it into a system that we then change because we're integrating technology into it, rather than just thinking that we can invest in AI and then, all our problems will be solved. But that is the direction that we have to go in. Unless we increase productivity in this country, working people will not get more money in their pockets, and all of the associated problems with that, my constituents will not get any better off. And the binary between an aging demographic and mass immigration, that is the way through it. It's hard and it's difficult, and I think there's a lot more thinking that needs to go on about, how seriously do we integrate tech into the sort of tail end of the vast majority of businesses and organizations in this country. But that is the path through that binary.
We focused really on the issue and policy throughout this conversation. We've steered away from party politics, but I do just think maybe it's where we'll finish. The stakes are extraordinarily high, right? Because the way that this conversation has gone, i.e., here's an issue, here are some ways that I think we could fix it, broader context, ideas, fine. There are political actors in the national political scene right now who are not afraid and very willing to go, yeah, do you know what, actually, it is the mass immigration. That is the problem. They're happy to scapegoat. They're happy to make tendacious claims. And I think the next election, you look at the polling, well, actually, the British electoral system might break down if 4 parties all get 20%. I'm not really sure what will happen, but for the sake of argument, let's say that's not what happens, and we end up with a more nationalist, populist government, i.e. reform. The stakes are extraordinarily high for the Labour Party right now. And I don't know if the remaining 4 years and 3 months at most is enough time to address insanely stagnant productivity and inward investment and wage growth. A lot of infrastructure projects, right, the Labour government is rightly focusing on. A lot of them won't even start construction by the time the next election rolls around. And you're sort of possibly in a situation where, okay, let's try and improve paternity leave. The right decisions, the benefits of them are quite often decades down the line, right? I guess this is where the politics comes in, because you got to tell that story, and you've got to be compelling enough to convince people that actually the things that you're doing, you might not feel the benefit of them right now. I guess all I'm trying to do is point out that there's not a lot of time to make these changes, right? There's not a lot of time to get this right.
I live and breathe this every day, and it is the thing that wakes me up. Apart from my children, it's the thing that wakes me up early in the morning.
Yeah, right.
So my constituency, Makerfield, had one of the highest reform vote shares of any Labour-held seat, and when I was knocking on doors, we were doing well in the polls. Everyone was chatting about how there'd definitely be a Labour government and so on. It was striking to me how unenthused so many working people were who I was seeking to represent at that point, and trust in elected politicians, in the things that we say that we can do, in whether we actually want to do the things that we say we want to do, is so completely broken. And the daily reality, as well as not having the Hindley Labour Club to go to and in a sort of well-attended social way, smashed glass, high streets that are decrepit, dirt bikes that zip through the night all the time on a Saturday night, wake me up, my kids up. Life is really, really tough out there. And people they're not apathetic, they're angry. They're really angry. And the more I listen to why they're angry, the more I think, I get it. I understand why you're angry. In my constituency, there are so many things. There's a massive road that's supposed to connect two motorways. There's an entire flood defence project. We had a really bad floods on New Year's Day. I was out early in the morning and I looked into why these floods happened, because a massive flood project was not delivered. It was delivered in a bunch of wealthier areas instead. And so they're angry, and they should be angry. They're right to be angry. So trust hangs on a tiny, tiny thread. And I think rebuilding it is partly about money in pockets, and it's partly about solving that problem. But it's also about the coffee morning thing I was talking about earlier. The conversations that you have to have with people in order to listen, soak up emotion, feel that emotion too, and then channel it. People are not stupid. They don't expect, their wages to double in the next 4 years. They know that these are really difficult, entrenched problems, and they know that they're going to take time. What they expect is to be listened to and respected and heard in a way that is really real, and not just someone on TV saying, I hear you, I feel you, I know this is tough, it's going to take time, and that is emotionally exhausting, doing it and doing it properly. And it's much more about the physical and the in-person and the local than it is about being on TV. TV sets up this dynamics, politician on TV, person at home watching. You have to be in the room, you have to be there, and you have to touch and smell and feel and so on. The one other thing I would say about solving this problem that isn't about policy is for a long time now, politicians have given away power. They've let the power that they have as elected people, they've given it to quangos, they've given it to various forms of judicial oversight. And it's not that those bodies have taken that power, it's that politicians have sort of been frightened of using it in some way, or not wanted to be visible when they've used it. And so they've handed it off. And a big part of what I think makes voters angry is that they think you're not even able to do and change the things that I care about. So what is the point in you if you can't do those things? And I do think it's really important for politicians to have that power, be clear about how they have it, and not be frightened of exercising it, and to use their imagination about how they do that. Because not having power means that you can let that imagination sort of wane. And I think it's really incumbent on my side, when faced with, that nationalist sort of sometimes scary, not all of it, but that anger. The parliament in this country has a lot of power. It can do a lot of what it wants. It's incumbent on us to think very hard and very imaginatively about how to use that power in a way that people who elect us can really see and really feel.